Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's so good to have you. In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a pattern bucket bag, which is something that you can carry as a regular tote bag or as a bucket bag, whichever one you prefer. And if this is something you would be interested in, please stay tuned while we delve into the video. I worked with a measurement of 15 inches for the width and 30 inches for the height. I also attached interfacing to the fabric to give it a bit of structure. If you'd like to know how I attached this interface to the fabric, you can check the video on the top right corner. For the handle, I used the measurement of 14 inches by 4 inches. I had two different handles which I folded into two. Then I also added interfacing to the fabric to give the handle structure. So the major reason why I ironed the fabric is to give it that structure and to make it easy for me to stitch. And before stitching, I clipped the edges of the handle to ensure they are properly positioned while stitching. So this is me stitching the handle. The inner pocket, I worked with a measurement of 6.5 inches for the width and 8 inches for the height. To fix the handle, I measured 5 inches on both the left hand and on the right hand side. Then I placed the handle on both parts that I measured by positioning the handle downwards and making sure it is not twisted. I repeated the same step for the second part of the bag. I measured 5 inches on the left and right hand side and attached the handle to the part that I marked, making sure the handle is not twisted. So yeah, I was just trying to ensure that the handles were evenly attached to both sides of the bag. For the inner pocket, I used the width of 7.5 inches and height of 4 inches. Then I pinned the pocket to the lining before stitching. After attaching the inner pocket to the lining, I went on to attach it to the outer part of the fabric. So I ensured that the inner part of the lining was facing the outer part of the bag in this position. Then I went on to stitch the sides that I stitched together. While stitching, I ensured that the handle was properly positioned. So there's another option. You can just stitch the handle first before attaching the lining to the fabric. That way you're sure that the handle would be properly fixed to the main fabric. But I just wanted to do everything together. That was why I had to be very careful while I was stitching. So after attaching the lining to the main fabric, I folded the bag this way, ensuring that all the sides, all the corners were smooth. Then I pinned down the middle part, I would call it. So I also measured 2 inches by 2 inches for the gusset. That's going to be the down part of the bag. I did that for both the outer part of the fabric and the lining. So I had 4 edges. So because I'm making a bucket bag, I had to create a hole to pass the rope for the bucket bag. So I measured 2.5 inches from the um tip of the fabric, of the outer fabric, and used a measurement of 0.5 inches for the hole to pass through. But I'd advise that when you're making your bag, try to use a bigger hole, maybe 1 inches instead of 0.5 inches. That way you have enough space for the hole to pass through. You'd understand towards the end of the video. So I stitched all the parts that I touched in this video. The parts that I did not mark, I stitched them, excluding the parts that I marked. We'll go back to that later. So after stitching the parts that I did not mark, I went out to cut out the gussets. That's the part that I measured to be 2 by 2 inches for all 4 sides. That's the lining and for the outer part of the bag. Then I went on to fold it in this format before stitching. Then I left out a part that would enable me to turn the bag after stitching round, which is this bit here. So it enabled me fold the bag outward after stitching. So the next thing I went on to do was to close the opening I had in the lining. I folded it inwards that way, clipped them first before stitching just to ensure they were properly positioned. Afterwards, I went on to fold the edges of the bag, ensuring that the lining were properly positioned inwards while the fabric remained outside. So I clipped all the edges round before stitching. You can also iron to give it that structure so it's a lot easier while you're stitching. But I did not iron it, I just clipped and I went on to stitch. So this was the outcome of the bag when I was done stitching round the edges. It turned out really nice and sturdy, as you can see. And the next thing I did was to, you remember that part that I marked out to be 2.5 inches from the edge of the bag, that's the upper part of the bag. They also advise that you should try to create 1 inch instead of using 0.5 inches like I used. So this is, I just tried to max that part out and I stitched round the bag. So like I mentioned earlier, it's advisable to work with a measurement of 1 inch instead of 0.5 inches to give you enough space to pass the rope for the bag. Also, while stitching, I ensured that the lining and the outer part of the bag were properly aligned to ensure that they turned out evenly after stitching. So that was why I kept on adjusting the bag while stitching, as you can see in the video. So now that I've successfully created the hole for the bag rope, I went on to attach the, oh, so you can see what I'm talking about. Even after stitching, the lining and the fabric were evenly aligned, so there was really no space, there was no excess lining at the upper part, that's before the rope. Then I went on to fix the rope, and I used a thicker rope, which was a bit difficult for me to pass through. So I ended up changing it to a rope that was, would I say, that fits the size of the hole that I created. So if you want to go with this thick rope, I'll advise that you use a measurement of 1 inch instead of 0.5 inches like I used. So at the later part of the video, you'd see the rope that I eventually used. It was a lot tinier than this, and it was easy for me to pass through the bag. Also, while you're passing the rope, you're going to pass the rope from both direction. That's from the left hand side and from the right hand side. So you're passing it around the bag. You start from the right hand side, pass it round to the other end, then you leave it there. You also start from the left hand side, so that way you're working with just 2 ropes. So this was the final look of the bag. It turned out really nice, and like I mentioned earlier, I used a rope that complemented the hole that I created, and I also added some beads to give it an extra layer of beauty. So there are two options to carry this bag. You can either carry it as a bucket bag or as a regular tote bag, and you can also turn it inwards to make the lining the outer part of the bag, whichever one you prefer. Don't forget to leave a comment if you found this video helpful, and check out the video on the top right corner to learn how to make a beautiful baguette bag. See you in my next video. Take care. Bye.